My 2025 AFL predictions video is here. Full length. I get to yap as long as I want because I'm on YouTube. TikTok only gives me 10 minutes, and for some reason, I'm able to yap about an AFL ladder for 10 minutes. Absolutely absurd scenes. But today, you will be getting my full ladder, my final locked-in ladder, although I've changed it 25 times over the, I'd probably still change the one I've put out, but fuck, you've got to go wild on these predictions because realistically this year you could argue 14 teams making finals, but the realism of it is 6 do have to miss finals. Well, 6 of the contenders at least. Obviously, bloody 10 teams overall miss. But yeah, I think there's a clear bottom 4, at least bottom 5 definitely. But yeah, you will be getting my ladder predictions, my premiership predictions, my Colemen medalists, and then also Rising Star, which I'm sure would be obvious to most people. But without further ado, let's kick it off with the ladder. And in 18th place, unsurprisingly, to absolutely no one's shock, it is, the Richmond Tigers. No, everyone expected that, all right? They're not winning a game this year. I genuinely believe they won't win a game. No, I'm kidding. They'll win a game, I believe. So I did an AFL ladder on Squiggle because you can look at a team's talent all you want, but at the end of the day, you've got to look at the context around where the games are played and obviously just teams' fixtures overall. I think I gave these guys 1 or 2 wins. One was against North Melbourne, and I believe the other one might have just been some upset win, maybe against Essendon or Melbourne or something stupid. They will get a team, you know. We've seen very, very bad AFL teams and they still manage to pick up a win. But if a team is to go winless in a season, it would be this one 100%. So, you know, I don't think anyone's arguing this. You know, the other bottom 4 contenders, you know, like your North Melbourne, like your West Coast, they've upgraded significantly. I mean, West Coast have stolen 3 Richmond players alone. So, you know, that's that. Well, 2 Richmond players, sorry. Anyway, and at 17th, some people are going to disagree with this, but I still think it's North Melbourne. A lot of people are like, oh, but they're cooking. Mate, they've brought in a Luke Parker who didn't play a game at Sydney. They've brought in a Caleb Daniel who is constantly a sub, although I think he will be the best one of those recruits. You've brought in Jack Darling, and then you've brought in Jacob Constantine, who didn't play a game at Sydney, and I can't pronounce his name for the life of me. I think it's another development year. You know, you've improved your list, I will give you that, but the one year you finally decided to make some improvements, the teams around you like West Coast have also done that, and I just think Essendon, Melbourne, St Kilda lists, and just overall they're too strong. I mean, you look at St Kilda's defence, it's insane. Melbourne still have a very good list, and although I do believe Essendon will get worse, I don't see them bottom 2 that bad. So yeah, I still think they will win a few more games, maybe 5 or 6. I think Richmond are like very, very closely down the bottom. But people are saying that North Melbourne are improving. They're not. They're getting worse, if anything. They're not winning any more games, any seasons. Like, I mean, you look at their last, 5 or 6 seasons, they've been bottom 4 every single one. I believe bottom 2, actually, in every single one of the last 5 seasons. And if you look at their percentage, it's just been dropping every season. I believe it dropped by 8% from 2023 to last season. And then some people are saying there's positive signs, but I don't see any. You know, they've obviously got a good youth list. I'm not denying that at all. Their youth is absolutely amazing, and when they get kicking, they will be good, kind of like the Hawks. But to end your season last season on a 124-point loss to that of the Hawks, when literally last year the Hawks were somewhat on your level at their worst time, you know, the Hawks just showed you how to rebuild just like that. I mean, they had one bad finish in 16th. You know, they were chilling around mid-table, but, you know, North Melbourne have been down here for 5 years, and I see it going and continuing the streak. Just, you know, there's not much to go off. I could see them absolutely blasting and, you know, just kicking ass, but right now I don't see that. At number 16, I do see these guys having 7 or 8 wins, similar to Hawthorn in 2023. So they won't be a horrible side despite the placement. But it is West Coast. West Coast, they've brought in Owies, absolutely beautiful. Graham, absolutely beautiful. Baker, absolutely beautiful. Giving Harley Reid some support in that midfield. Upgrading that forward line a little bit with a small forward in Owies, of course. Then, you know, you've got rid of Darling, that's fine. That'll give Waterman and Allen more look at, I guess. That defense has downgraded massively with Barras out, though. I think that is the main struggle in this side. But just like Hawthorn, I think they're going to slowly patch up areas and rebuild pretty quickly, because that's just what West Coast and the Hawks do. They're two of the best rebuilding teams, and they manage to quite literally stay at the top quite a lot of the time. They'll spend their few years rebuilding, at the bottom, but then they spike right back up and dominate. Obviously, the Hawthorn is more popular when it comes to that, just considering the dynasties. But, West Coast haven't been in the AFL for long, and what they've achieved has been beautiful. I mean, they're one of the biggest fan bases, and they've got 4 premierships since joining just, over 30 years ago. So it's very impressive what the Eagles have put up. But yeah, I do think it is a bottom 3 year. I can see them spiking maybe the 13th or 14th. But hey, that's where I have them for now. I think I did give them 7 wins. And then finishing off my bottom 4, a lot of these fans aren't happy with this because they always seem to beat us every year, which I get annoyed with in round 1. And yes, I am talking about the Bombers. I was so tempted to put Melbourne here because Melbourne dramas are continuing. The club is still collapsing, the culture around it. But I just think Melbourne's list is just, despite all the problems, it's good enough to not finish bottom 4. See Essendon digressing, just considering how they finished last season. They got rid of Jake Stringer. They're going to be relying heavily on Peter Wright in that forward line, and Langford, who are, very good. I could see this team having a breakout year. They could, and absolutely just boost, but I don't think that time is now. They're clearly playing for the draft and playing for that long youth strategy, similar to that of the Hawks and North Melbourne. But yeah, as of now, they haven't brought in any names that are like, wow, you can talk about the draft, whatever, but the draft is never a guarantee. Never a guarantee, and Collingwood proved this quite a lot. They rarely play for the draft, and they play for established players already in the league, as to why they can pick up a premiership here and there, and I do believe they could do that this year, but obviously you'll have to hear my premiership contenders and, who my premiership favourite actually is. So yeah, I have Essendon finishing bottom 4. I don't think they break out yet, but they probably beat us in round 1, let's be honest, because they just love doing that, don't they? Anyway, just escaping the bottom 4, it is who I just said and mentioned before. It is Melbourne. They've got too many issues. They've got a good list. Mate, they could end up in the top 8, like, literally. I'm telling you, it's only those bottom 3 teams that I don't see making finals. Maybe bottom 4, maybe Essendon saying they make finals is a bit too far of a push right now, especially considering how last season went for them. But other than that, I think every single team I name from now on, you can make an argument for making finals, so it's just about putting them in a spot, because every spot has to be filled up. So am I going to be right? No, we're probably going to come back at this, at the end of August, early September, and it'll be absolutely completely different. I mean, I had Carlton finishing first last season. I mean, I don't even remember. I believe I can get my 2023 ladder up, or 2024, sorry, hold up, I went too far. Yeah, I had Carlton first, Collingwood second, 8th and 9th on the top 2, and then the rest of it, is alright. I had Melbourne 7th, they finished 14th, I had the Hawks in 13th, I had Geelong in 12th, yeah, anyway. But yeah, Melbourne, too many issues. There's just a lot going on at that club. Your 2-star players really don't want to be there. Oliver was crying to get out, but Geelong just simply had nothing to offer. Because, well, they were targeting Bailey Smith, and it was so much easier to get Bailey Smith because it was either he joined Geelong for free, or the Bulldogs get nothing, or they just get pick 17 or 18, whatever it was. But yeah, and then Petrarca, he's already picked up that rib injury. His career might be over at this season, which is sad to say, because he's not that old. He's like prime age. He's 28 or something, 27. So he's like in that prime age. Your prime age is 26 to 30, I reckon. Some hit their prime earlier, but that's usually the age. You look at the Bont, you look at Cripps, they're all within that age range. You look at Sicily, when he had his All-Australian year, he would have been 28. He's 29 now, I believe. But anyway, yeah, Petrarca, his ribs, it's dangerous. It's dangerous if you're picking up bad, like a cracked rib in training. I know some clubs go hard in training, but a cracked rib in training, you just wait until you get in that midfield. They're probably going to have to switch him to a small forward, which is kind of what they did last season when he did play, at least. But because if he's playing in the guts, he's going to get it in the gut, and you just don't want a life-threatening injury. Once those ribs get crushed, man, especially again now that it's happened twice, and he's had that serious injury that kept him out for bloody literally so long. You're looking at a career that is going to end. So it's just bumps and bumps for Melbourne, and you just feel bad for them, kinda. You've got Gawn, who had that injury before Christmas as well. Obviously, I'm assuming he'll be back by the time the season starts, obviously. But your three guns are aging. Well, Oliver and Petrarca are young, but those two don't want to be there. And then Gawn's the one aging. You lost Neil Bullen, and yeah, I don't know. You gain some things, but there's just a lot of negativity around this club, and it's just unfortunate to see. So yeah, that's Melbourne. But in 13th, pretty basic club. They always finish between 6th and 14th for no reason, and it's St Kilda. I generally don't know with this club. They end every season well, and everyone's like, oh, they'll push for finals, and then they disappoint the next season. I mean, you look at 2023, they finished 6th place. They also ended the season looking good. I mean, they beat Geelong. They only lost to Brisbane by 2 goals, and they beat Geelong comfortably by 5.5 goals, by the way. They were looking good at the back end, and then 2024 happened, and you're like, wow. And then they're doing the same thing again. I mean, they beat a Blues side that was injured as shit, and they barely beat them. They beat Geelong, who was, resting for finals because they had already had a top 4 spot, confirmed, really. So, yeah, that's literally that. St Kilda just always finish here. They're a boring club. I don't see them being a threat. Some people are like, oh, they're going to rise. They can definitely make finals. I'm not ruling them out fully at all, because they're that weird club that just sneaks in there every couple of years. I mean, they also did it in 2020. They just randomly finished 6th, and then did it again in 2023. Maybe it's an every 3-year thing. Maybe in 2026, next year, you'll be 6th. Maybe I'll tip that. But yeah, here's a club that I could seriously see making the 8 and making that big push. They've added Daniel Rioli. All right, we all know who we're talking about. We're talking about the Gold Coast Suns here with this new, ugly, disgusting, dog shit logo. It's actually not that bad. I actually don't mind it. But yeah, I have them finishing 12th. Again, you've just got to fill these slots in, honestly. From anywhere between 4th to 14th, it could literally finish in any way, literally, which is crazy to say. But yeah, I think they improve slightly again. No Lukosius might be an issue, but I honestly don't know what to say. They've added some good players. They had that big trade with Collingwood and Port Adelaide. Maybe try win some away games, then you might be alright. I don't know. That's my issue for them. But yeah, you've got the coach. You've just brought in a beautiful, beautiful halfback, which was desperately needed. Imagine that. Imagine Mac Andrew intercepting, boom, right onto Rioli. He's got your run. He provides it. Boom, spikes right in the middle to Matt Rao, and then he sends that shit in for Kingy, or I was about to say Lukosius, or whoever else. So yeah, Gold Coast 12th. Nothing much that I can really else that I can say. 11th, again, I can see this club rising. They brought in Neil Bullen. They've brought in a couple of GWS players. It is the Adelaide Crows. I believe this is an improvement on where they finished bottom 4 this season. They could either absolutely crumble or, make finals. And I have them doing neither. I think they just finish in the middle section. They slightly improve, but the lists above them are just better. And I think they will have better seasons. But yeah, this Adelaide team's looking dangerous, man. Looking really dangerous. I do think that they can definitely make finals. I mean, they're right there. They'll probably miss it by probably 1 fucking win, or even percentage if it gets that absurd towards the top of the finals gap. Yeah, this is a scary club. I would be looking out for them. But again, these teams could finish literally anywhere. It's the toughest season to predict by far. So yeah, I feel bad for anyone doing predictions. But coming in at 10th, and this is where I piss a lot of people off, and they're all going to be looking at this flag, my shirt, my hat. But it is Port Adelaide. It is Port Adelaide. I'm sorry. Now, will they probably finish top 4? Yes. Will they still not make a grand final? Also yes. I don't know. These guys have finished top 4 of the last 5 years. The 1 year they didn't finish top 4, they missed finals. They either make top 4 or miss finals. And with the rise of Collingwood, with the rise of GWS, with the rise of Fremantle, the Hawks, and then you've still got Geelong, Sydney, and Brisbane. Yeah, nah, you're not. Okay? Listen, you've had a blow with Todd Marshall. He is gone for the season. He is out for the season and not looking good. Your coach is an idiot, let's be real. He's good. You guys are good in season. Very good in season. But when it comes to finals, you do nothing. So, I guess this is, that doesn't really make sense because we're talking about the ladder here. So I don't know why I've said that, let's be real. But I don't know. The loss of Marshall for the season, you lost Houston, your best halfback, your best player, and you really did not get a lot. Your team's still very... That midfield's very good. The back line is meh. I mean, you got Radagalier. Obviously, you've got Aliir, who's beautiful. Farrell, Burton, Lockie Jones down there as well. The forward lines... It was okay, but you've lost 2 key forwards now, and you'll be relying on Jeremy Finlayson, to cover for to cover for Todd Marshall, and then Dixon is gone. You've brought in Lukosius, which is awesome, but again, there's no guarantees. I just see them having one of those off seasons where it's like, maybe they're drained off. Making top 4 2 years in a row, and they just, have that weird off season. They're my, what do you call them? My fallers of the season, the underperformers of the season, that I just see, falling. Anyway, we get nearly into the top 8. The team just missing finals, and I hate to say it because I can really see them making it, but it is the Dogs. It is the Dogs. Yeah, you've lost Bailey Smith. Did not get shit for him, considering it's a Bailey Smith. You got no Caleb Daniel. Jack McRae's also gone, and you got Matt Kennedy for him. I'm sorry, that does not replace the 3 players you lost. Everyone likes to argue that they didn't play, whatever. Look at what happened when they didn't play, bro. They got bombed by us by 40 points in the... Here's the deal. If you don't upgrade your list, you simply can't improve. Unless you have a young, really young list, like a North Melbourne, like a West Coast, like a Hawthorn, that simply just need time to develop and grow. But if you're one of those, finals contenders that's already got an established list, if you're downgrading your list, you can't get better. These players can't get much better. They're already very experienced. They're one of the oldest teams in the league. So yeah, that is that. There is not much more development you can do with an older list. That's just not how it works. So when you lose Bailey Smith, that is a big loss. Nevertheless, you can say he didn't play, but sure, you did not get shit for him. You got pick 18 or 17, whatever it was. You lost Jack McRae. Again, you could make that same argument that he barely played. Him and Caleb Daniel played half your games in 2020. So that instantly isn't true. And then there's still depth. They've got to be replaced. These players have to be replaced. And if you're going to replace them with draftees, yeah, you're downgrading your list. You are getting worse. And you finished 6th this year. And again, all of the teams that are in the 8 either have a better list or are rising and just upgraded their list to a point where I think they will bump you down. You'll probably miss out on percentage, very most likely. But again, these predictions are probably going to be hella wrong. Now, just sneaking into the top 8, and a lot of these fans are going to get mad, but honestly, with the recent news that has come out, honestly, it might not be bad. Carlton. It is Carlton. All right, Nick Newman's out for the season. He's finished 2nd in back-to-back best and fair... for the Blues. So that's a big blow instantly. And then you lost Owies. Kennedy's gone. Marchbank's gone. You lost on the Houston deal, which you were heavily pushing. I mean, you just lost a lot. Again, it's the same situation. You downgraded your list. You simply can't get better. The only reason it's different to the dog situation is because you had an injury stint this year as to why you finished 8th. If you didn't have that, you probably were in the top 4, let's be honest. So, yeah, you will be sliding. Well, not really, but technically. And again, if these injuries start happening similar to last season, and look, injuries are always going to happen. It's just a matter of if you have a shit ton or whether you're more on the lucky side. And I think you'll just probably be middle range, or with the footy you play, aggressive kind of football, you're going to pick up more injuries, right? So, yeah, I could see it being a very dangerous season, and you guys possibly even missing. So, yeah, that is Carlton's situation. Newman blown out for the season. Your CEO doing weird shit on Twitter. Yeah, and then you got rid of a lot, and I don't want to hear any chat. Always is a massive loss, and then again, all of these other losses are gonna add up, right? You've technically replaced them, with the twins you brought in, or brothers, I should say. I don't know if they're actually twins. And then you brought in, bloody Jager Smith. My bad. I was like nearly forgetting, or I did forget. Yeah, again, there's no proof that they're going to perform on AFL level. And again, in your first season, that's just not going to, change it around. There are situations where, like, Kalshadir, for instance, or Nick Watson even, both of them had very good seasons in their first year. But I don't know if this will be the same. I mean, Nick Watson was, well, obviously one of your, pick 4, so that would explain that. So, Jager Smith, if you're expecting him to be good, fair enough. Yeah, the brothers, I don't know. And again, you lost a lot more than what I named, by the way. So, again, you downgraded that depth, and if you want to go far into the 8, you need depth. And at 7, I kind of, was tempted to change them from being 7th. I could literally see this team finishing top 4, finishing first, and they're basically my premiership prediction. It is Collingwood. They've said it again. Fuck the draft. Absolutely fuck the draft. Let's have our 2023 premiership team back. Tom Mitchell back. Add Houston, add Perryman, add Membry. How about that? Yeah, they're going to kick absolute ass this season. People are saying the only reason they are 7th, and I think that they might not go as high as what, I was overrating them to be at first, is age. That is literally it. But we've heard the age excuse so many times. Every premiership team, like Geelong were the oldest when they won it, Collingwood were the oldest when they won it, Richmond, I'm sure, were top 3 in age when they won it. Very rarely is the team that wins the premiership young or, middle age. They're usually that top 5 or 6 in age. At least recently it has been. So with that age, it comes experience. Yes, they will be a little bit slower, but there's game styles that you can implement, and Geelong prove this a lot, that you can implement for older, that suits older people, It's not as much running. But just because most of them are in their 30s, it doesn't mean they're walking bricks. They're still professional athletes that, are very, very good. They will be ever so slightly slower, but their bodies aren't fully killed off yet. Like, damn, they're not going to be useless. I think Collingwood come back up firing this season. They missed finals. They're going to have a fully health and fit team. I can see them coming in, blasting absolutely everyone, and just fucking dominating and finishing first, like, easily. But, I'm trying to be somewhat realistic also. But they're going to be very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Now, in number 6, this team would 100% be higher, but they've got a few bans. It is GWS. They've got a few bans in the first few games, and they're tough games. They're starting off with Collingwood. I think they now lose that because of these losses. And again, Collingwood are going to be very hungry. This team is also going to, be a little bit off, considering they choked back-to-back finals games and went out in straight sets. That will always have a toll on your team. If you don't believe me, then actually you shouldn't believe me, because Port Adelaide did the same thing and then spanked everyone and came second the next year. That was going to actually be my point, but, That's an awful point now. But no, they do have a few bans in the first few games, so I think they're going to start off a bit rocky, which is already affecting your top 4 ability. I mean, if you lose your first 2 or 3 games, that's going to be very tough. I mean, so yeah, that's just that. And then, I don't know, I feel like with the momentum dip, as they start bringing players in, the players that finally do come back after being banned won't, be at that level. They're gonna, cramp in the first few games while everyone's already adjusted, and they're just gonna take some time to actually kick into gear. So I think GWS will be one of those teams that have a slower start to the year, and then absolutely kick ass, and push for the top 4. But I think they do just miss it. So yeah, that is GWS. They've got a very fun, exciting young team. Again, there's a lot of teams growing around them. And in 5th place, I'm loving the look of this side. One of the best defenses in the league. They've now brought in their key piece, Fremantle, Shy Bolton. Woo! They're going to cook. Again, their depth is the only thing that's a little bit worrying. But man, they got absolutely riddled with injuries, similar to Carlton. But unlike Carlton, they didn't lose anything, which Carlton lost a lot. And then they gained exactly what they needed. Whereas Carlton wanted to gain Dan Houston and instead got Nick Haynes, who isn't bad, but, Houston, Nick Haynes. Houston, All-Australian, Nick Haynes. You know what I'm saying? There's levels there. But yeah, Shy Bolton, he loves performing in WA. He's always dropping 25 to 30 disposals and 2 to 3 goals. Obviously, he's probably not going to do that every game, but it's he is popping off. He is entering his prime, this kid. He is dangerous. He's going to be a top 5 player in the league. Mark my words. He's going to be dangerous. So yeah, I think this team's going to absolutely cook. Some people are pushing them for Premiership favourites and top 4. The only reason that I'm strutting away from that, 1, depth, 2, lack of finals experience. And you can say that about the Hawks as to what I'm about to say about the Hawks. But this is a team that, made finals, was looking good, then had a disappointing season last year. Well, it was really good until, all the injuries and that's where depth proves. Again, you need depth. You'll always need depth, especially when you're going a whole season, man. So I think that's what will cost them mostly. But, some of those players might need a reset of finals, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's the only reason I don't have them any higher. And again, I just think the 14s above them, it's gonna be tough. But then again, this top 8 could completely switch around. But yeah, let's start off the top 4, shall we? At 4th place, it's the Hawks. It's the Hawks. Now let me absolutely yap. If it's anyone's year to win a premiership, if Hawthorn have ever had a greater chance, it is this year. The depth on this squad is absolutely insane. Your key... Here's Hawthorn, right? 2023, dog shit year. Couldn't defend well, relied on Sicily heavily as to why he was All-Australian. Couldn't score for shit because they had no key forwards. Mitch Lewis was constantly in and out, and then we didn't have any other key forward options other than Jacob Kajitsky. That was that, alright? 2023 off-season, Sam Mitchell, big boy brain, was like, we need key forwards, so let's bloody go. Todd Marshall wasn't an option. Ugle-Hagan signed a new contract, so did Norton. That's fine. Boom, Marbia Chol turned him into a VFL Premiership player at Gold Coast to Hawthorn's top goal scorer. He had a bad final series, Marbia Chol, but do not let that blind you from the season he had at the Hawks. He is flying, and he's got the new cut too. He's looking absolutely sexy. Boom. Jack Gunston back in. Got rid of Brody Ryan. Brody Ryan? Jesus Christ. Brandon Ryan. Gave them to Brisbane. Brought Jack home to coach and develop. And Jack Gunston played his role exceptionally well. And again, we failed to create any contest. Contesting marking was heavily down. We couldn't create any contest for the crummers to be able to crumb, like your Dylan Moore and C-Mac. So when the ball was getting booted into our forward 50, it was chopped off every single time, and that's why we struggled to win games in 2023. Whereas last season, you know, we were able to score. It was just in those close and heavy games, the Port Adelaide game, the GWS game, the other Port Adelaide game, we failed to defend these leads because the defense was too reliant on Sicily. The rest of the defense, you can't blame Amon and Impey. What the hell are they meant to do? They're 4 foot tall, right? But, you know, you look at your less experience. You know, Scrimshaw was out for all of these games, I believe, other than the GWS one. But, you know, you look at the names like Ethan Phillips, you know, James Blank, you know, and they were too reliant on Sicily. The pressure got to them. Weddle was still in that back line, of course, as we know. Whereas now you've got Tom Barras and Josh Battle, 2 elite defenders that are going to come in and just squash it. They know what they're about. Sicily doesn't even need a bit. We're going to go from being reliant on Sicily to not even needing him. You know, obviously we'll need him. I don't mean it like that. But I'm saying, you know, if Sicily injures himself or dislocates his shoulder, we'll be okay without him for a couple of weeks because of these massive ins. So, you know, 2023, we needed forwards. Got forwards, improved. 2024, Sam Frost went out. Boom. Sarong and Ethan Phillips couldn't live up to it. Whereas if you put Josh Battle and not Sam Frost, and Tom Barras in that equation now, you know, replacing Sam Frost, it's GG's. Port Adelaide don't even get close to winning that game. Not even close, right? No team will. And, you know, as cocky as that sounds, it's also the truth. These guys have been elite for years upon years. They're just not at the right club. Whereas right now, they are joining the right club at the right time. So, what was I saying? So, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. So, you know, needed key forwards. Now we need key defenders. And that's the final puzzle piece. Key defenders, we now have Sam Frost, James Blank. You've got James Sicily, of course. You now have Tom Barras and Josh Battle. 5 key defenders, just like that. They can all play the role pretty well. I say pretty well only because James Blank, obviously, he'll be coming back from an ACL, and he was never that good, you know. You know, and Sam Frost can be shaky at times, but he stood up massively last year. Again, without him carrying that back line almost when Sicily was out, you know, I don't think we make finals, so you've got to give him credit. And the fact that he likely won't even be in the lineup next year just shows. Anyway, so you've got those 5 key defenders. Then you look at your halfbacks. You've got Amon, you've got Impey, you've got Weddle that can play that role, you've got CJ, you've got Morrison, you've got Day that can play that role. Absolutely insane. Then you move on to wingers. All right, you've got Mass, you've got Weddle, you've got Amon, you've got Day that can play it, you've got Morrison that can play it, you've got CJ that can play it. You've even got Watson and Moore if you're really that desperate. 8 winger options. Then you've got that middle, that gut area. You've got Warple, you've got Newcomb, you've got Day, who rarely get injured, okay, besides Day. But the other 2 never get injured, and they're tough guns. They are the toughest of the tough, right? And even if they do get injured, guess who we get to bring in? We get to bring in McKenzie. We get to bring in Ward. You've got Hustwaite. You've got Ramsden. You've got so many midfield options, ruck options. Ned Reeves is pushing for the top spot right now. His training has been superb, at least that's what's being reported. But obviously you've got Meek, you've got Reeves, Chol can play that, Weddle can play that, Nash can play that. You've got 5 ruck options. And if you don't think the other 3 are realistic, happened so much last year. If you watched any of the Hawks games, you know, when it was needed, when the switch was needed, all of those players went in and performed their role perfectly. Then you've got key forwards. You now have James Sicily on that key forward list, right? You've still got Cal Shadir. You've got Marbia Chol. You've got Mitch Lewis. You've got Jack Gunston. Superb. Even, you know, Hardwick, I don't think he can play the key role, but he can definitely play that one-on-one forward role, and you can move him. There is so much movement, so much freedom, and so much versatility and fitness in this squad. You know, and then you look at the small forwards. Obviously, you've got Moore. You've got Watson, you've got Guinea, you've got McDonald, and now you've got Hardwick that you can add to that list. Weddle can even go forward. Weddle, that kid can play fucking anywhere. The level of depth everywhere on this pitch, you know, you look at that, you look at the starting 22, you literally have 5 players in every single position, You pick your 22 players, right? A few injuries come in, say, oh shit, Sicily's out, bro. Boom, you can bring in a Sam Frost, you can bring in a James Blank. Or not even, you could go with another forward option and bring in Jack Gunston, who I don't think will be in the best 22. Because Sicily will likely be playing forward. Scrimshaw, Battle, and Barras will be able to lock down that defense completely fine, no issues whatsoever. You look at Jai Newcomb getting injured. That one's going to be a massive one, but you can still bring in Mackenzie and Ward, who can play that role, and then move Warple or Nash into, Newcomb's position. It is just, the depth in this squad is scary. You got key forwards. We have 2 key forwards that will not be playing round 1, Mitch Lewis and Cal Shadir. But we've got Chol, we've got Gunston, we've got Sicily, we've got Hardwick that can come forward now, especially with that backline, being bandaged up and not needing to be reliant on Sicily. We've now got even more forward power despite having 2 key forwards out. It is in-fucking-sane. It's absolutely insane. You have any wingers out. You could have both Mass and Weddle out. Boom, CJ and Morrison, Day can play there. You can move Moore or Watson to the wing and then bring in, Hardwick to replace them in the forward line. Like, the depth on this list is absolutely insane in every area. And the Hawks are going to be scary. It's our 100th year in the AFL this year. You've got Bruce and Jack Gunston from the three-peat era who are likely going to retire at the end of this year. You've got the momentum. We ended the season 14 wins, 4 losses from our last 18 games. 3 of those wins were by a combined 6 points. 1 bad performance in Geelong because Nick Watson did his ankle. Mitch Lewis did his ACL in that game. Will Day was only just coming back. Jack Ginnivan didn't even play. And, we were at Geelong. 1 bad game in 18 games, with all of that happening in that certain game, by the way. 1 bad game in 18 games for a development team. And now you're adding Battle and Barras to this list. Just say your prayers if you're not a Hawks fan, because this is going to be the most dangerous team. And, so you take all of that into account, 100 years, the list upgrades, which I've just yapped about for probably 10 minutes. You've got, Bruce and Gunston's last year, 100 years of the competition. But then you look at these other contenders. You look at Geelong. They've lost 9 players, all right? They brought in Bailey Smith. Awesome. But you still lost 9 players. You've lost Parfitt, who, had above average stats and played quite a lot of games last year. You've got Zach Tui. You've got Tom Hawkins also that have gone. Now, sure, they barely played, but they're players you're going to have to replace. And if you're making prelims without them, or with them, I mean, although Hawkins didn't play, to be fair, neither did Parfitt, but Tui definitely did. But they're still players you have to replace. And you didn't do that in the draft. And, let's be real. Are you going to bring in another Tom Hawkins? I don't think so. Obviously, Cameron's great. And, you're going to see my ladder later on. Obviously, the top 3, I don't think it's going to be a problem. But I think down into finals, depth is definitely a key area. And Brisbane proved that. Moving Joe Danaher to Rock, they had numerous ACLs, the Brisbane Lions this year. And just injuries overall. No complaints at all, and they won the grand final comfortably. But if you look at these, I think Brisbane, Geelong, and Sydney straight up, which are my top 3, by the way, for the season, they've downgraded their lists. Obviously, Danaher's a massive loss. Luke Parker, Jacob Constantine gone. Again, you've got to replace that. They didn't, because they didn't gain anyone back. So they've picked up, whoever they did in the draft, who I guarantee you won't play a game. Not that Luke Parker and Jacob played a lot of games, but, and then you've got Geelong, who lost a lot. Not only did these teams downgrade their list, right, but on top of that, they're just going to be drained, all right? A draining season always happens. Port Adelaide proved that. Geelong proved that last season. Collingwood proved that this season, Geelong proved that 2023. Collingwood proved that last season. That after so much time at the top, when your list is aging, sometimes the hunger feature just goes away in these older sides, that have spent so long at the top. And, Brisbane have played the last 2 grand finals. They've already won their premiership. They're not going to be as hungry. Maybe they are, and again, I have them in the top 3, so I can't really say that. But I'm talking about when it comes finals times. Sydney, 2 of the last 3 grand finals, got battered in both of them. That's going to have a toll on them. Geelong, I just don't think they have the list anymore to actually go all the way to win a premiership, but I do think they'll dominate in the season as they usually do. Fremantle, growing rapidly, but I think it's way too soon to say a premiership, as well as GWS. Both are growing rapidly. Didn't upgrade their list as good as the Hawks. As good as the Hawks is the key word. Not saying they didn't upgrade. They definitely did. But being interstate clubs in a finals and being 2 teams that have never won a premiership, those 2 teams below Hawthorn are our biggest threats. Yet, considering neither of them have won a premiership, they, one went out in straight sets last year in finals. The other one didn't even play finals. I think, and then obviously the grand finals being played at the MCG. With these 2 small, well, I shouldn't say Fremantle small, but, with 2 smaller fan bases, you go to Hawthorn in the grand final with these 2 teams, you have 80,000 out of the 100,000 of them being Hawks fans, easily, right? So the advantage lies with Hawthorn. If it's a season for Hawthorn to win a premiership within this dynasty, which I can guarantee is now starting, it is this year to absolutely put your foot on the pedal. Ride the wave of momentum. You had a crushing loss, but we are training so hard, coming back so much stronger with a better list, hungrier than ever, and then people are studying our game plan. You think we don't know that? You think we're just like, oh, we're only, basically the fucking best team right now, in form. We had 1 bad game in 18 games. No other club can say that. But no one's going to worry about us, right? Yeah, they're not going to look at our game plan, so let's do that. Are you dumb? Are you fucking stupid? Obviously, we are aware of that as to why we're going to implement certain changes, right? But I think our list is complete. We're going to ride the momentum. We want the eyes. People are saying, oh, but you have so many eyes and so much expectations. You think we didn't have expectations coming into the later half of the season? You think we didn't have pressure? 1 loss meant no finals, and we lived up to it, despite being a younger team than what we are going to head into this season to. Despite starting 0-5 and knowing that every game was a semi-final, we lived up to the hype, went into the elimination final. Biggest crowd in elimination final history, with all the eyes on us, with all the pressure on us in the world. A big blow. No Will Day, and then you're versing the most in-form side, probably besides us, but the number 1 ranked team in every statistical part of the game heading into the finals in the Western Bulldogs, who were playing magnificent, had a fully fit squad, and the only stat they won against us was clearances. They got fucking hammered and wiped in every single part of the game, and you're going to bring up pressure or eyeballs on us. We were the most rapidly growing fired club this entire season, or last season, I mean. I keep saying this season as if we're still in 2024. But, if anyone's going to live up to pressure or wants attention, look at what Nick Watson and Jack Ginnivan do. They're 2 absolute attention-seeking people, which I love, by the way. I love the shit stirring. That's what our club's all about. We want the attention. We want the eyes on us. Because we ride with that. That's how we started this whole thing, and then we get everyone to watch us. We're going to be the most watched club. The membership numbers are going to be through the roof. So I think if it's a Hawthorn season to win a premiership, it's this one. It is this one. Everything is riding for us. The teams that are growing, my 3 threats would be the 3 teams that I have below us. The 3 above I've already explained. The downgraded lists. The losing of top key players in each squad. Well, not so much Sydney and Geelong, but I just think so much time at the top for all of these sides. The hunger out of Sydney and Geelong, we saw Sydney get battered in 2022 to Geelong, and we saw what they put up in 2023, barely scraped finals. I think Brisbane will be chilling around this area. They are still a threat, but I think the hunger factor will slightly be a bit off, and Joe Danaher is the main worry. I'm sorry, Eric Hipwood will not win you a premiership. Joe Danaher carried so much. So Joe Danaher is the factor of Brisbane that I am sitting here right now and saying that they won't win the premiership. And then you look at Fremantle, GWS, again, interstate clubs, they're just growing, lack of finals experience, the toll of getting knocked out in straight sets last season. And then Collingwood, it'll be an age thing, and we just always have their number, really, especially in recent times. I mean, you know, since 1980, I believe we've played 60 games, around 60 to 65 games against Collingwood, and we've won 42, 43 of them. You can fact check that, by the way. It's, we extremely dominate Collingwood, no matter what, reason it is. So I just think if it's anyone's time, it is the Hawks' time, and I genuinely believe that. So, and I think we're going to live up to the expectations and absolutely dominate. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't. We simply can't go backwards, and I don't think we're worried about that. None of the players seem like they're worried about that. These new guys coming in just looking beautiful. And as of far, we haven't had any terrible, terrible injury news. Cal Shadir will be back early, but then again, it's, Cal Shadir. It's literally our least experienced forward. And then you've got James Sicily who can come in to replace that. And then you have Lewis, who's been out for the last 2 years anyway, so yeah. Anyway, that was a yap session and a half. That probably went for like 15 minutes alone. But in third place, I do have Brisbane, alright? I think they have a better season. They started last season poor, or poorer than what they should have. But I still think they will ride the wave, and they're going to be hungry for more. The only reason I don't think they will make the grand final and win the premiership is because they've played the last two. Making 3 grand finals, especially in today's game, is nearly fucking impossible, which just makes us making 4 in a row look even more impressive, and then our 3-peat even more impressive on top of that. So, and again, Joe Danaher being out. But I think in season, in terms of that, yeah, they're going to absolutely dominate and spit on everyone. Here's a team where I'm literally 50-50 on. Second place, it is Sydney. They're either finishing top 4 or not making finals. It is as simple as that. Again, I just think their list is extremely good, and, you get half your games at the SCG. They're just going to absolutely kill. They're going to dominate. So, yeah, they're looking good, the Swans. They're looking good. I still think their list is extremely strong. And, again, I think they're one of those teams, kind of like Geelong, that even if they disappoint in the finals, they're always in the top 4, you know what I mean? They've actually made top 4 more than Geelong have in the last 20 years. So, hella impressive from their point of view. So, yeah, I think they're just, going to have a dominant season. And, again, finals is completely different to the season. It's going to come down to depth, hunger, and I just think with Hawks' fitness and everything, it might be their year. But you'll hear my premiership contenders soon, or my actual favourite. And finishing off, there it is, the entire thing. Geelong are first. I don't know why. I feel like Bailey Smith is going to have an all-Australian year and flip that midfield around. Anyways, in first place is Geelong. Their starting 22 list, their best, the team that they're going to put out most, obviously, if injuries don't happen, is so scary. You add Bailey Smith. I think Bailey Smith is having a all-Australian elite year. He is turning that midfield absolutely around, and they are going to tear everyone apart. Geelong, they're just going to rip it. I don't know why I have that feeling. You've got to go bold with some of these. I've gone bold with, Port Adelaide missing the 8, the Dogs missing the 8, Hawthorn making top 4, you can still consider bold. Having both the grand finalists in the top 4 still is going bold. Even having Geelong in the top 4 is still bold. There are so many bold calls in this ladder, but you have to go bold because, right, you have a look at, the AFL ladder last season, right? If I can quickly get it up, right? First of all, I'll just start, 14th and 15th was Melbourne and Adelaide. No one expected either of those to miss finals. That's just a fact straight away. Hawthorn finishing 7th. No one expected that. Carlton finishing 8th. Everyone had them top 4. Everyone in their nan did. Most people had them finishing 1st. Who was another shock factor from Collingwood missing? I don't think that's as crazy, just considering they won the grand final. Some people usually are like, oh yeah, the grand final team usually falls off, which is definitely fair enough. And then other than that, Richmond finishing last. They're bad, but their list last year was not that bad. Obviously, it was the injuries. But them finishing dead last, no one called that. Literally, no one called that. I mean, I think I had them finishing 14th, 13th. So, but yeah, there were so many bold calls that definitely no one made last season. So yeah, that is that. You've got to go bold with these predictions. Yeah, it is as simple as that. So yeah, that is my 2025 ladder. You know, I am probably going to be completely wrong. You know, I think, man, I really do think the Hawks could do better. I do think Collingwood could blitz up, even Fremantle. Your top four could be Hawthorn, Fremantle, GWS, and Collingwood, to be honest. With, you know, and you can just switch it around a little bit. But yeah, that is my ladder. As for my Coleman medalist, I'm going to go super boring, but it's going to be in between Jeremy Cameron. I just blanked out. It's going to be between Jeremy Cameron, Jesse Hogan, or Charlie Curnow. I think those are your top three right there. I think anyone really good at any other club, you know, I feel like some other clubs aren't as reliant. You look at Hawthorn, the spread of goals in that list is insane. I think we had 5 players that all had 30 plus, and then you had Gunston and Kalshadir that were just shy of 30. So yeah, the spread on our list is just good. We don't rely on that one key forward that much. You know, Nick Larkey will be up there. I would imagine Waterman would also be up there, but considering the clubs they play for and the position of those clubs at the moment, they won't be necessarily, you know, Coleman worthy. Obviously, Brisbane wouldn't have anyone insane. I think Brisbane's issue will be, you know, the goal scoring factor with that big key forward. You know, similar to Hawthorn in 2023. You know, the lack of key forwards. You know, but hey, who knows? They might bring in Brandon, or did Brandon Ryan get chopped off? I'm not sure. Maybe they bring him in and see how he does because, well, they traded him for Jack Gunston, so, you know. And, you know, a lot of people had concerns about Jackie Gunston, you know, about him not performing, about him being injured because he was injured at Brisbane. Nope, he was homesick. He just had to come back home. But yeah, as for my Coleman medalist, sorry, I just yapped. I am going to shoot the trigger and go back-to-back Jesse Hogan. I think GWS have a massive year again. Their placement screams otherwise, but I think, you know, he's one of the players that didn't get banned and wasn't involved in the whole incident. Which, you know, I'm not going to drop my opinion on that. But all I'm going to say is, you know, let the players do what they want outside of, you know, football. You know. Anyway, so yeah, I think Jesse Hogan does go back-to-back. Charlie Curnow shortly glides behind that. Or do I go with Jeremy Cameron considering Geelong are going to have a fat year? You know what? I'm switching. I'm going to go Jeremy Cameron. That has convinced me. I have Geelong dominating going first. I think Jeremy Cameron just spikes the shit out of it. Especially with Hawkins now gone. He's going to be that main target in that Geelong forward line, and I think he absolutely kills it. He is still in this prime, this man. He is a golden. I'm going to go Jeremy Cameron for the Coleman medalist. Rising star. Is anyone surprised that I'm saying Sam Layla? No. No one is surprised by that. But yeah, that kid's going to dominate. You know, he's the pick one. So, you know, I could see Jager Smith also doing it. But I just think, you know, if Richmond are going to get a win, it's going to be off the back of this kid. And he's going to show very promising. Whereas Jager Smith, I don't think will play as much for Carlton, just given their list overall. Whereas, you know, Layla's obviously going to get plenty of time in Richmond, who, you know, don't have anyone anymore as they got rid of everyone for these draftees in particular. So, you know, that's my reasoning for that. And your premiers for 2025. And this is the most bold thing I could ever say. If you think I'm going to say the Hawks, absolutely not. I have a absolute curse on me. I was thinking about saying Geelong, and it could very well be the Cats. It could very well be probably 6 or 7 of these teams. But I am going to say Collingwood. I think, you know, despite what my ladder says right there, I think they go all out one last time and win the Big 17. They've said fuck the draft. You know, the last time they said fuck the draft and went in for some godly players, yeah, they won the premiership the next year. That's right. That is right. And it's ride or die for Collingwood. If they don't win it, they're not going to for quite some time because firstly, most players are going to retire. They'll still be able to compete, but they're going to be a lot like the Hawks during that 2019 to 2022 period, where they just finish, 13th, 14th, 11th, whatever. They're, kind of like St Kilda do every season. They're just going to finish in between, that area because, the hunger's now going to be gone. The age is going to be kicking in. Pendlebury will be gone. DeGoey will be gone. And they're going to have to start rebuilding. But, Tasmania are joining the league and stealing all your draft picks. So, and then while, Tasmania are stealing draft picks, other clubs are going to slightly fall. Probably Geelong might be one of them. Although, actually, no, they've got some great youth, Geelong. They just always seem to stay consistent, eh? I guess Collingwood do too, but, this list is a lot different, a lot older. So I think, all of those names are gone. So, whoever it may be at the bottom at that time, and people looking to rebuild are going to struggle with Tassie. So that's going to instantly put a toll. And then when you're trying to rebuild and slowly build pieces, but then there's another club stealing all your draft picks, then you're spending a few years just slowly getting worse first round picks, right? But then you can't really build anything strong, and you can't really use any of those draft picks to get any big boy players. So then you're in this weird concept, and then after that 5 years when Tassie are finally, obviously they're not stealing draft picks for that long, but I mean, they'll steal draft picks for maybe the first two drafts, and then everyone down the bottom, which will still include Tassie, and, depending how bad they do, they might get compensation picks, as well as North Melbourne. If North Melbourne are still down the bottom, you're just going to struggle to get first-round picks because there's going to be so many teams falling. So it's going to just take time and time and time to a point where it was kind of like Hawks in the 90s when all these teams joined and stole all the first-round draft picks, and, the Hawks didn't really get much until, 2002. They didn't get a proper draft hand. I think they had a really good draft hand and, somewhere in the late 90s, but, one good draft is not enough to change your team around, obviously. And then, obviously, since their team was slowly falling, they couldn't get rid of their veterans because they were retired for draft picks because, well, they were retiring. They didn't want to play for a different club. So I think that might happen with Collingwood. They're not going to get rid of their oldies for draft picks. They're just going to retire. They may get compensation, but again, with Tassie entering, with North Melbourne's, how bad they're going to be, with Richmond most likely still down the bottom, it's just going to be constant, you know what I mean? To a point where, 5 years after all of that bullshit's going on, Collingwood might hit a list reset completely, spend ages down the bottom, and finally build up. And I just think they're going to be down the bottom for quite some time after, the next few years. So if it's not this season for them, it's never. So, well, not never, but it's a very fucking long time. So they've got to pull the trigger now. They have done that, and they're clearly going all out for it. They're all hungry for it. And that brings me to my Brownlow prediction. It will be Nick Dacos. He is going to finally absolutely do it. He's just going to pop off. I see Collingwood popping off. I see Nick Dacos having his best ever season. And maybe he'll get a contested mark. Hey. So yeah, those are my predictions. That's my ladder. My premiers. I'm going massively bold and in saying Collingwood. My next two would be Brisbane and Hawthorn. I can definitely see Brisbane going back-to-back. That would probably be my second pick. Then I would go the Hawks, given all the reasons that I literally went over for probably 20 minutes of this video. So those would be my top three, but I am going Collingwood. And then fourth would probably be Geelong or something. And then, slowly followed by Fremantle and GWS. I think Carlton's time is over. I think the Dogs just a no. And Sydney, just given their 0-4 in their last 4 grand finals, I just don't have it in me to put them any more above these guys. They've had their time and they've failed every single time. That doesn't randomly change. So yep, that's it. That's my ladder. Premiers, Collingwood. Your rising star, Sam Layla. Your Coleman medalist will be Jeremy Cameron. And then your Brownlow medalist will be Nick Dacos. But I think Jai Newcomb might be pushing himself into the top 5, maybe even the top 3 with another big year, because he just keeps rising, that kid, and he's looking even more dangerous. He wants to become quicker and a more damaging midfielder, especially on the scoreboard. If you've heard his interview, you know. But those are my AFL 2025 predictions. All right!